Hi, this is Amber with From Farm to Yarn, and I wanted to show you today how to use a Niddy Noddy. And if you're not familiar with it, a Niddy Noddy is pretty much this, it's kind of like an H-shaped wooden tool. Usually they're wood. Some people make them out of PVC and other plastics, but if you buy them at usually your local yarn stores, you're going to find them in this H shape that's perpendicular on itself. See those two edges? So basically what it does is it allows you to take your yarn off of your bobbin and wrap it around here, and you can keep it so that it doesn't twist onto itself and get all tangled and become a mess. So this particular one is 9 inches from top to bottom. So wrapping your yarn around the 4 sides and coming back to the beginning will get you 1 yard. So this is a 1 yard Niddy Noddy, and it's kind of a smaller sized one. So I use this when I'm doing maybe just a single bobbin, although a part of a single bobbin, which is what I have here. I have like half of a bobbin with a silk single ply yarn here. So I can pull this off onto here, and that's what I plan to do. Most of the time though, you're probably going to need a larger Niddy Noddy, and this is more traditional. So this one is 18 inches from top to bottom. So as you loop around and go around 4 times and get back to the beginning, you've gone through 2 yards. So you can just kind of count how many wraps you have and then multiply that to figure out how much your total yardage is, which is nice. That makes it pretty easy to figure out your final yards. And this is kind of a funky art yarn I made a few weeks ago. So obviously I've already wound fiber onto here. The way that you wind the fiber is you want to go to your wheel, and you don't actually want to pull it through the orifice and try to wind from here, because you're just putting extra friction on your yarn. So you don't want to do that. You want to pull it through, and so I pull it through until it's loose from the orifice and any part of the flyer. And then I have to loosen my Scotch tension so that this bobbin is just totally free and able to go. And you just pick a side, and then what I actually do is hold my yarn in place on the center of this, and I'm going to keep a nice tight grip. And then you go over one side. Sorry, it's a little faint because this is so light on here. Down the bottom, up on the other side, down on the bottom, and you're back to the beginning. And so you just repeat this motion going in the same direction at the same places every single time, because if you don't, you're going to have a tangled mess. So you just continue doing this over and over until you get to the end. So I'm just going to continue doing this, and I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing, and I'm going to finish off. Get close to the end and come back and start filming again. I'm almost completely done, but my yarn broke, and I've never had this happen before, but I am dealing with silk here, so this apparently wasn't tightly spun enough. It was a little underspun, and that roving just kind of pulled apart. So I'm just going to tie it together and keep going from here as if it was a join in the fiber. And I'm going to have to deal with that knot later because I'm using this for weaving. But I'll just have to deal with that later when I get to it on weaving. Okay, so I have my little knot. Boy, maybe I need to loosen my bobbin a little more. I'm going to be very gentle getting that back and going till at least I get it going. You can see though that I've loaded quite a bit on here, and I'm almost to the end. So just rocking back and forth, loading my yarn on here, keeping my left hand in exactly the same place, holding on to that yarn, keeping it exactly there in the center. And almost finished here, and you'll get faster and faster at doing this as you do it a few more times. Turns out this 1 yard size ended up being really good. Okay, now I probably have too little tension on my bobbin because it's really rolling around on me. But we're almost done here, so I'm not going to worry about it. And if you're lucky, your end will end at the same place where your beginning was at. And actually, I'm not that far off. So it's kind of nice when that happens. So my end is right down here. If I were to pull this all the way through, it would come over to here. And here is the end. So my beginning and end actually paired up nicely. And I can just tie these two together now. That doesn't normally happen though, so you just have to kind of end up losing maybe a little bit of your yarn so that you can tie those together so that the beginning and the ending are coming together and making a nice little knot and keeping the whole thing as one giant circle of yarn. So I have a little bit left here on the end. I could just break off or cut off because it won't break. So it's not ready to pull off yet. You need to tie the skein now in order to make it ready to pull off. So just snip that little edge there. What I do is if I want it nice and pretty and I'm going to sell it, I'll probably use some of this yarn to tie the skein off in places, but I wait until it's all washed and done and set, and then I come back and take some of that yarn and retie everything. In the meantime though, I usually just use like a cheapy cotton yarn like this one. I think this is that sugar and spice blend or whatever. And just something that has a contrasting color so I can easily see it against my yarn. And if I go to cut it off and take it off, because I'm going to put this on a ball winder, I'm going to put it, pull it out and then make it into a ball, I want to be able to see it and I don't want to cut my yarn. So when I want it to look pretty for other people, I'll use the same yarn, but when I'm doing it for myself, I just use something that's contrasting. So I have probably about 18 inches of yarn right here, and I just cut it into 4 little pieces. And you're going to take on each side of the Niddy Noddy, and you're going to make a figure 8. And so you do that by kind of breaking this in half, or pulling it apart, I should say, and putting your yarn through, having the yarn come up and over, back through that same space in the yarn, and then that is what we call a figure 8, and you're just going to tie this into place. And you don't want it super tight, cinching onto the yarn and causing an impression onto it as it's getting wet and drying, but you do want it to stay in place. So I usually put my finger right under here and then I pull that knot tight. So there's a nice knot there, but this is loose enough where the yarn can breathe and pull apart and go through the wash and go through its drying and stay fluffy and stay in place, but still have room to breathe. And so I'll need to go through and do that for all 4 of the sides. Okay, so I have these 4 sides tied, and then on this particular Niddy Noddy, you just pull off from one of the sides. And I will say I like this little Niddy Noddy that I bought on Amazon, and it wasn't very pricey. I'll try to link to it below. I'll remember to do that. But it doesn't have one side that differs from the other that makes it easier to pull off. So sometimes it gets stuck, and you really just have to pull. And that's what I did here. And I'll pull from all the sides, and yes, it will twist up. Like I said, this is a single ply. It's not perfectly balanced, so it's not going to be in a nice full U. Plus I haven't set the twist yet. I haven't washed it yet. And if you don't know how to do that, I have another video on my channel that shows you how to wash your yarn, your hand spun yarn, and set the twist. But overall, I know it's nice and stable because it's tied throughout, and the beginning and the end are tied together, and I'm ready to go wash it. On my larger Niddy Noddy, each of the ends has this flat area that kind of prevents the yarn from falling off the edge, except on one of the corners. And so that's the corner that I pull my yarn off from. So again, I have this one tied on all 4 sides, and I just pull it off and pull it off down here. And this one's a little better balanced because it is plied. So, okay, so I have this yarn ready to go too. Now this is an art yarn, and I might choose to steam it a bit instead of fully washing it, but we'll see. So now you know what a Niddy Noddy is and how to use it. Good luck.